16th of September 2023, the Gardai Drew Harris. A few people have been on to me not understanding the points I'm making. Well, the first thing is when there's trouble in the Gardai at high level, very often pressure comes on the commissioner to resign, and I just don't see the point. There are people in the Gardai who would make excellent commissioners and understand how to do this, but they'd have to, like myself campaigning on the windmills, they'd have to go against the grain. The grain is you keep your mouth shut, and all the bit of pulling and rope and all this type of corruption, which is people ringing up from ministerial offices and civil service and all that, and getting their people promoted into positions, is very damaging. Because those who have good ability but don't have what they call pull, in America they call it rope, those who don't have someone pulling for them can go to hell. And that means that our talents are lost. Talent is lost. So what happens is you get a lad joins the Guards, he goes into an office in Dublin headquarters, he's pushing paper all his life. He gets to be a sergeant doing the same, and then he wants to get to be a superintendent, and it's not to do anything great in the Gardaí. He wants to get his pension upped and increased, and so that he'll have a better retirement. And he knows people here and there, and they put him on the promotion list. And anyone who looks on the promotion list or published in the paper and in Irrecificule will see that there's an overwhelming favouring of cities, particularly Cork City and Dublin City and a bit of Galway City, overwhelmingly favouring those areas. And those areas, Dublin for example, has all the technical bureau and all that. So these people may have never been out on the beat in recent years, never investigated a crime, never had to mix it with the public or anything else. So what did they do with them when they get them promoted then to superintendent? They have no vacancies for them in Dublin anyway, and a lot of these, they're afraid to put them as superintendents in big stations around Dublin. And they horse them down to a quiet place and hope they'll get by. And some of them arrive down there and they meet the local people and local guards who help, and if they're nice to them and help them along and carry them along, they might do them a stroke when they get back to Dublin somewhere, but they're not fit for the job. And so there are too many being promoted in these areas where there's no vacancies. The promotions should be to fill vacancies all over the country, in every county and every district and region. Not a big heap of them in one area to the expense of the other. That was pointed out in the Donegal arms inquiry, where they were hiding weapons and finding them for glory, just to get promoted. And even the judge said that's the only way they could get notice for promotion. The same was pointed out in the Morris McCabe Tribunal. Absolutely zilch was done about it. It's the same now as before any of that happened. Okay? So that's my big point. It should be across the board equal promotion. And in England, in Britain, I think it's England and Wales, you have 43 police forces. Now, there is a possibility of moving from one police force to the other, but because each police force has its own chief constable, they promote their own. And if you don't have the promotion system right, the whole leadership goes boways. And that's one of the problems I see with it. That's one of the problems I see with it. There are at least half of the members of the Garda Síochána who just do the job and hope for the best. When the IRA was fighting the state and the UVF in the north were fighting the Irish state, they would promote a non-able-bodied person because they needed a few that were able to do the job in that way. They would promote a few of them. But once the troubles eased off, they went back to their old tricks. And in many border areas and many areas where there was troubles and murders of Gardaí and soldiers and all that, the minute the troubles eased off a bit, they appointed these same kind of Dublin-based fancy pants useless officers to superintendent and chief superintendent, and they came down and they destroyed everything and ruined it for the people who were there. The other feature you get in the Gardaí is we say there's a superintendent. I say there's a superintendent in. I'll just name a place totally off the top of my head. I'm thinking of Tipperary, but maybe it's not a good again. I don't know if there's one in Clonmel. We'd say there's one in Clonmel. I presume there is. I didn't check it. And there's a superintendent there. Well, we'll take Fermoy in Cork because I know there's a superintendent in Fermoy. I checked it one time. So we say Fermoy. There's a superintendent there, and he has a good show, running it well, good job, everything fairly good, everything well, and he's good at his job. And he gets promoted to chief, and he's sent to Limerick or somewhere. And then the next thing is some fella comes from Cork City out or from Dublin, probably Cork City, and he's full of crap, and he is an idiot. And he's never investigated a crime or anything else. He's out of an office, or he could be down from Dublin. And he'll sit down and he'll try and upend every single thing that happened there. He'll call a conference, he says, what you did in the past is over. We're doing something new. And he'll bring in all these crazy ideas, upsetting everybody. No regard for the limitations there are on resources or the limitations on expertise or anything else. It won't produce anything better. And he'll have a conference every week, and he'll have the whole people that's investigating crime stuck in conference and preparing for conferences a whole day before and a whole day after, 4 days a month, and there's only 20 working days in the month in any event. And then when he goes up for promotion, he'll tell them about this he did, and the idiots on the promotion interview. One of them is a civilian, some kind of a civilian psychologist or some damn thing. And he asked them out stupid questions about the Ural Mountains or something like that, and asks them questions that are not realistic. And they'll go up before that board and they'll see this lad that's so good at presenting himself, but has nothing to show for it. He's been in an office all his life. Oh, he's the boy, and they'll promote him, and it works. It works. So the interview boards are what works. Who promoted the ones that were obviously failures? The other point in the Guards is that once they get to be inspector, and particularly superintendents, they're totally above the law. They can do anything they like. Anything they like, and they can't be touched. And that was also the case in the tribunals and everything else. A superintendent is as near to a diplomat as you can get. He can do anything he likes. Now, most of them don't. It has to be said that 90% of them, or 95%, are honourable people. They live and get on with it and all that. And some of them are quite sensible and all that. So you can't generalise. But there are the few of them there. And if they're there and they know how to manipulate the system, they'll get on. There's a skill in itself in organisations fully recognised of how people who have no ability to do the job can actually work their way into positions of great power. And RTE was a classic example of that, because I was involved with people who worked in it years ago, radio, television, and if somebody was such an idiot down on the floor, they'd promote them right up. It promoted both pets, they were all for gays as well, but it also promoted people to get them out of the operational area and up into an office. And then they were able to make the rules and upset everybody else. There's no need for this. If you take a good hardware shop anywhere, it's run right. There's none of that nonsense anywhere. You take a good building firm, big building firm, no nonsense. None of that old nonsense at all. They make their plans and they get along. And so the same with anything in the private sector. And the poor old Gardai and the police in England too, they all say, God, it can be great to be in the private sector and I have a friend in it, and there's none of this nonsense. And there isn't. It's a price you pay for the security and the pension being in the police force offers. It can be fixed. But just like many things in Ireland, until the people throw out the government that's doing it, and even if they did, it takes people with good knowledge to buck the trend, put it back on an even keel. The person in the inspector in Fermoy and Cork is as much a right to be promoted to superintendent as some fella stuck in the assistant commissioner's office in Cork City that never was outside. And I was also asked to explain, people who watch and ring me up, about this thing about these regional commissioners. There was just six commissioners. There used to be a commissioner, two deputy commissioners. That's still the case. Then there was four what do you call assistant commissioners. They were lower down, and the deputy commissioners could deputise for the commissioner himself. But then they added a whole heap of commissioners, new promotions, jobs for the boys, and gave them to officers in Sligo, in Mullingar, I think it was, one in the Dublin region, one in the Cork region, I think one in the Limerick region. And they had no role. There's nothing in any law or anything about them. They hadn't the authority to transfer anybody. They hadn't the authority to deal with discipline. So what role had they? They had no role. It was just jobs for the boys. That's all. So that's it. I hope I'm trying to clarify this. It's like everything else I do on my channel and everything else I do in my life, I probably never change anything. But what I can do is inform people who want to know of what's going on. And I can see in the media, and particularly in the broadcast media and some papers, I can see the things that I'm talking about being referred to, because it's planted in the public's mind and they hear it back. It mightn't be from me. Might be from me. I was the first to be on about selling RTE's Montrose ground, and now it's all the talk. So there's a process where you plant an idea in people's heads and it becomes mainstream. They mightn't think of it themselves for years, but if you tell them about it, oh yeah, they'll go for that. Unfortunately, it works in the reverse. If you tell them windmills is a great idea or electric cars are a great idea, oh yeah, we'll go for that too. They're muggles, but that's just the reality of it. Okay, folks, that's me done now. I'll not deal with the Gardai for a while. We'll give it a bit of a rest. I just love to see it being resolved and things fixed, and I'd love to be able to recommend the Gardai to young boys and girls or lads of young lads and that, and they're letting them in now, I think, up to 30 years of age. I'd just love to be able to say, yeah, you'll get a fair old deal there, go in and you'll have a bit of crack and you'll enjoy the job. I can't do it because the corruption is so endemic and so upsetting, and I hear it from all the guards. I have a lot of friends who are guards, and it's just too sad, just so sad. And of course I meet the people who retire and come out of it, and when they know, they'll soon tell you what the story is. We'll see you back for something else soon. Bye bye. Good luck.